Welcome to Trading Lounge and the European indices, and starting with the DAX on the daily chart, on the 1 hour chart here. Now, I don't have a lot of answers for the European markets at the moment, okay, but I just want to share with you what I'm thinking. And in this particular case here, from this wave 4 here, we can count down as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here for wave 1, back for wave 2, and we can get a nice 5 waves out of 3, 4 and 5 here. This can count up here as 5 waves. We should be short at the moment. We're short here. We took part profit here. You may have other shorts in the market. So we can bring the stop down to this point here, because if that's breached, then we'll be going up for another 5 waves at that point. Okay, so but this could still certainly just move to the downside here. And normally what I do is that I would never turn long unless we had the closest largest number as support, and you may think that 11,000 or 12,000 is the largest number here, but it's actually not. It's this particular level here, the 11,500, according to the trading levels, and so we don't have support on that at the moment. So I just want to observe this, but this could still certainly have 5 waves down here, come back to this point here, and then move down further through here. So if I look at the bigger picture here, say the daily chart here, we've been counting it down like this here. If I can just squash this in, an A wave here, a B wave over here as an A and a B and a C and a D and an E here for wave B, then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. So we can be at a low here, and it would be logical to think that we get a bounce off the 11,000 here as well. So it's possible to have this low in here. But also, when I normally look at these particular structures through here, I would look at these as down for 1, back for 2, down for 1, back for 2, down for 1, back for 2, and a third wave moving down, and then would have a fourth wave and would continue to move down this here would be the third wave, because it's the strongest. Needs to be a series of 1s and 2s, and then we'd get a series of 4s and 5s coming into this space. But if that's going to be the case, then we're going to be going lower than this wave 4 should be dictating at this particular stage. So if I go to, from the daily chart, go to the weekly chart here, let's just have a look at this for a moment. So if I go here, then from wave 2 here to the top of wave 3 there, the 38.2% retracement comes in here, and we're moving through that now into the 50 and the 60% retracement area here. So we are coming low. Technically we can come down at the top of wave 1 here. We can go to this particular point here. Right, if that's breached here at this point, then we've got overlapping wave structures. Then something would be wrong with this, and the only thing I can think of at this stage would be that, and this is quite possible as well, we could look at this, remove this one here, remove this one here, and put this wave 4 here as a bit of a odd looking triangle pattern coming down to this point, which would leave this as wave 1 and 2 here, and 3 and 4 here, and 5 here, and we actually have a top in play coming into this situation here, and we would have to look at this as down for 1 here, and wave 2 over here, and this would be a series, this would all be wave 3 coming down here, copying this down here, and these are all a series of 1s and 2s here. So it's normal for a market to come down to the wave 4 of 1 lesser degree down to this point here, but in this case, if we were going to get that, I mean, somebody showed me a count. If I can go to the monthly chart here, somebody showed me a chart where we had, I mean, in this case here, we've got wave 3, an A and a B and a C here for wave 4, then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. So we were looking for one more little move up. But if wave 4 actually, as I just mentioned, then comes in on this low here, then we can put wave 5 here with this wave 5 and have a top in play here. So somebody has mentioned that Pete, you can have wave 1 here and wave 2 here for this, and then what would happen then is that all of this up here would be wave 3 up here. Right, just remove this for a second. All of this 5 waves up here for wave 3 fits nicely as such, and then in that case here we would look for wave 4 to move back into this space here. And that's all logical looking at it like this. But this little, what I want to show here, this move down here as wave 2 here. If I look at this on the S&P 500, for example, we can see the first thing here is that this, if I look at the bottom of this A wave here, it takes out the bottom here. So I can't call this up for, on the S&P 500, I can't call this up for wave 1 and back for wave 2 here because it's taken out the low here. Okay, so in this case here, it hasn't taken the low out. So in some markets it hasn't, and some that it has. So I can see why you would have 1 and 2 there and nice 5 waves there. That would make sense. But the main point here is that you know, if I mean, which is the best way to look at this? So if this is wave, if we think this is going to be wave 4 here, then wave 5 to go up here to finish this off, and then down from here, then the S&P 500 would have already finished, if that was going to be the case, already finished up here, and the S&P would be basically moving, you know, moving all the way down here. So I don't understand how this leg here, the 5th wave in the DAX, would push up here at this particular scale when the S&P here would be, you know, in a major downtrend here. So, you know, we don't normally, we can see them, you know, be out of whack a little bit and push boundaries and so on, but you know, to have this in a bear market and to have this in a bull market, yes, you could have this down as wave 1 and 2 here, and this wave 2 comes up further up into here and finishes off, but it's highly unlikely for that to occur here. So it would be better to, it would be more logical to have this here and have this top in play here if that was going to be the case. So coming back to the weekly chart here, where are we? We don't really want to see the market move down any further than what we've actually got here. Otherwise, we're going to have to look at this as a more of a bearish market, which I don't really have a problem with. But we're treating all the markets around the world at the moment as those wave 4s pulling into place. So even in the Asian markets, we're looking at the same thing as well. When I look over this, I mean, it does look odd to have a wave B here, but if I look at the German mid-cap here that we've been looking at as well, in this case here it makes quite nice, doesn't it? We've got wave 3 here, an A wave here, and all the way over the B wave here. I mean, a wave 2, I've never seen a wave 2 that complicated, not to say that it can't happen, but I haven't seen that since I've been around. And I've started looking at charts in the early 80s, so but anyway, what we've been tracking here, and we've been using the German mid-cap as a good guide stick because we could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So it does appear that this little 5-wave structure down here is finished down here. I mean, it could, I mean, I'd want to see more evidence of a low being in place because it could be down for 1 here and back for 2 and 3, 4 and 5 and finish down here further. But the extension was in wave 3 here, so wave 1 and wave 5 would be roughly the same length. So that's all sort of suitable. So we can have a low in here, so we'll watch this here. Also to the CAC, the French market here. There's different ways to count this as well. I could count it with a top in play here as wave 3 here, an A and a B and a C and a D and and an E wave here for wave 4, and then having wave 5 finish here, and then would need to look at this as 1 and 2 here, and 3 here, and 4 here, and 5 down here. But I'm looking at it more in a very complicated pattern here in terms of wave 3 here, an A wave here, B wave here, C wave here, D wave here, and E wave here as a triangle pattern. But that, I don't know about that either. But what I do know is that the move from B to C here, like the other markets, is probably completed here. Okay, so we need to gather more evidence, but we're close anyway, close of this 5-wave structure finishing here for the French market. So that's there. This is the German mid-cap here. The DAX here, we don't want it slipping anywhere below the current 11,000. We want to see it try and climb back on the 1150. If that starts to move down below the 11,000 here, then we're going to have to look at that possibility of this DAX having this wave 4 sitting in place here rather than having it sitting here. And then looking at these last 5 waves up here, and then looking at this as more of a bearish count. I mean, this count here is very much sort of like the Australian banks, actually. So I don't know what relationship that is, but normally there's a strong relationship between the Australian market and the English market. Obviously, they've got the same accounting systems in place and trade in place and so on and so on. So I kind of understand that. So yeah, that's the DAX at this particular point in time. So I just wanted to look at that bigger picture scenario. When we look at the FTSE, I don't have any answers here either, unless there's a top in place. So you know, I can work this in this whole. I mean, when I look at this here on the weekly chart here, for example. I mean, it makes sense in this. I mean, I've just been trying to fit this whole triangle pattern in with the S&P 500. So we'll need to see where the DAX and the S&P go. But from wave 4 here, we can look at this in different ways here. We can look at this as 1 and 2 here, 5 waves up to here. We can even have wave 4 over here with wave 5 sitting in top where wave D is here. And all this is an impulse wave to the downside. Yeah, there can be this wave 5 top can be in play here, but you know, I still want to work to this wave E here being played out here. I know this is quite unusual. We don't not often see the sort of reverse expanding triangle pattern playing out. It's normally the other way that it plays out, and it may not even be the case. This wave 5 here may be, you know, maybe in top here as well here, and this would be the same. It's possible for the Australian markets to be doing the same as well, but we're tracking an ending pattern in the Australian market as well being in place now as well. So I don't really have any answers on this on the intraday, but what I can say here, it's very much like the Nasdaq actually. We'll just have a look at the Nasdaq for a second while I'm here. Yes, yeah. So the Nasdaq's at 7,000 as well, and the market came through, bounced back as it does. I mean, this is a classic trading levels pattern where a market. Normally, we'd look at it from the long side, so the market would come up, have a reaction here, and then push up from here, have an ABC correction from here, and then start to find support here. So normally would get out over here and then get back in over here. If we could figure it out, would move back in over here. So from the downside, on a bear trend, the classic trading level pattern is the arrival here, the reaction here, then moving through, then coming back and then moving through again here. So this is kind of what this has done here. So, but to keep it really simple, the 7,000 was the support here, and now it's the resistance here. So what we can do here is we can go short here on this one here, and we go long here, and this is the same for this market here. So it was come down, we've got support here, it's dropped through, back through here again, so a little bit tricky here. So we can go long above here and we can go short below here. This little move down here appears to be 5 waves here, so at minimum we'll look for a move like this here, but from that point it can move further down, or from this point it could move further up from that point. The other point that I'm struggling with here as well is that we could work this wave 3 here to wave 4 here, and then we're looking for wave 5 to come down. So we did have wave 5 here, but then also too, I mentioned we'd need to get support above this level here. So we knew that we're going to kick back into here, but then come down again. And so I've got that right too, but what I'm left with now is, I mean, if I looked at this here as wave 1 and then back for wave 2 here, then wave 3 here, then we'll be looking for wave 3 to move down further with wave 4 and 5 here. But we've got this little move here that's not making any sense. So from this high here to this high to this low here, I've got 3 waves in there. So with that 3 waves there, then this is kind of really got to do with this correction here. So this might sound a bit hard to get your head around, but it makes this the A wave to here, 3 waves for a B wave here, and then would look for a C wave up here, and the C wave would be 1 and 2 here, and 3 and 4 and 5 here for this. So I really don't know what we've got here at this particular point, but this move downwards in 3 waves here can either be down for 1, back for 2, down for 1, back for 2, but it's come quite high here, but that's okay. We know patterns get skewed around large numbers, so we can have a very bearish pattern coming out here. But what I can say is that if this top gets taken out, then we'll be looking at 5 waves to the upside of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here to the upside. So all I can say with this is that if that top is taken out, then we'll be going up to probably 7,200. But if this low gets taken out here, well, then we'll be looking at a much bigger bearish picture to the downside. So apologies for the mess, and I also don't have a good grip on what this pattern is at the moment. But in terms of strategy, we need to be long above here, and we need to be short above here, below here. The MIB is also the same as well in Italy. So with Italy here, I was looking at this here as I can see I've got 5 waves down here, not a problem, wave 1 and 2. This is probably the 3rd wave to this point, and we're looking the 4th wave to this point, so I was looking for 5 waves down. I don't have 5 waves down, I have 5 waves to this point, and then a correction in 3, and then 1 and 2 and 3, and then what's this pulling back up so far when I've only got 3 waves here and it's overlapping this structure here. So there's something going on here that I don't understand. So I've either got more of a bearish pattern here with an A wave here, B wave here, and a C wave here, and then moving down lower from here, or we move up here in 5 waves, do a little ABC here, and then move up. I actually don't know, but I also know too that it's quite common with the trading levels. We've got 20,000 here, and the next level down is 18. It's quite common to get a bounce off 18 for a retest to the 20 here. But I can't give any trading signals here. I just don't have anything at this particular point. And we've got other problems with this too. We know that, of course, Italy's financial situation is in dire straits. When we look at it on the weekly chart here, I might even just go to the monthly chart here just for a moment, because we talked about the S&P. So on a big scale. So with just to get our bearings here, if I go back to the S&P 500 here, we've got wave 3 over here, an A and a B and a C for wave 4 over here, okay? So when we look at that particular pattern with Italy here, if I can just bring that in, that's it here. So that wave 3 here, an A and a B wave over here, and then down for the C wave here. This is out of whack a little bit. If I'd line these two up, I'd need this wave C and 4, I need it over here. But because I've got 5 waves in this little structure here, I've got to have it at that particular point here. So, yeah, and then we see obviously the S&P 500 move up from this particular low here. So on the MIB here, we can look at this as 5 waves up here, starting a bull market, that's fine, and then pulling back, that's fine, and then looking at this here. So this is, you know, when we think of the S&P 500, the S&P 500 has taken out these tops here, way up here, but this hasn't here, obviously. So obviously taken all the tops out here, but this has just struggled and bounced along this level here. So we know that the S&P is either got a top in play here, or we got one more move up here. But either way, you'd have to say we're quite close to a top here with all of this, okay? So there's no way that this is going to make new highs up here. So all of this here, we'll have to look at this as part of a correction here. We do have this as an A and a B and a C. I could bring this C wave back to here, but this is not, I can't even look at it like this. I can't put that wave 4 there. That just doesn't make sense to have that wave 4 there. So we've got to count all of this here as a bear market from a top over here, which in fact would leave this down as, you know, down in a series of corrective moves down. So it's quite likely at some point that this is going to be moving down here further. So just looking at this here, I'm going to go from the monthly to the weekly chart here. We're just going to talk about this for a moment. So if we were looking at this in line with the European markets and looking at this as a wave 4 here, so with the European markets, we've got wave 1 and 2 here, and then wave 3 here. Then we'll have to look at this as an A and a B and a C here for wave 4. So we don't want this market moving down any lower than what it is. This is the 18,000 here. Technically, we could have it down here as wave 1 here and wave 2 here, and wave 4 could come all the way down here. But if this overlaps this here, then we have to rule out that this is not wave 4 here. And we'll have to put in place that this wave 5 here that we've talked about before can be in play here with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here for this to be in play here. And this will just work itself lower in here, like much further down here. So of course it's going to follow the DAX and so on in its own way, but we can't count it the same as the DAX as such either. So let's just see where we are now with this. If normally with this, as I mentioned, when working with these numbers here, we would normally allow this market to, it would normally come down and bounce off this market here. It's either going to retest here and move down, or it's going to move up here, fade here a little bit, profit taking and so on, and then find support here and move on up through here. So we can expect support to come in like we're seeing on the other markets, but we don't want to see it below this 18,000 at this point. Even being below here, what happens if this market was sitting on support here, we could look for long trades here if we had the setup, right? We don't, but if we did, we could. And then we can't go long anywhere in here. We can go long on the 18,000 for a bounce, but we don't know if the bounce is going to be just the bounce or if it's going to move up here and then find support here. So we can normally go long from 18 back to 20 here. Yeah, so we're kind of between a rock and a hard place with this particular market. And, you know, I was, as I mentioned, count for a daily chart here, was counting 5 waves down. We're not quite at the 18,000 here just yet, and we're a few waves short here, but coming into that hourly chart, was it? No, it was the 4-hour chart. So here we're still, whichever way I look at it, we're still short a wave structure here, but at the same time this bounce up here has given us overlapping wave structure, so I'm not quite sure how to call that into play here just yet. So I don't have any answers for this market at this stage, but there is that bigger bear market looming. But let's just see what comes from the top 50 stocks in Germany here, and see how that carries through. Let's just see how this low comes in here for Germany. Let's see how the CAC handles its situation as well here. France, after these 5 waves down here, I just want to observe. I want to observe the move up here on these markets. I need to see if they are corrective or not, and the same with the with the DAX as well, and the UK market as well. So let's just wait and see, and pick up the thread when we've got something to pick up on. Alrighty, cheers.